Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be covering lesson 2.4 decimals. And if you think about decimals, they're very similar to fractions. In other words, they're useful for representing parts of a whole. So for example, if you had a pizza and you cut the pizza up into 8 pieces and you only ate 3 pieces, so far we've looked at fractions, but decimals are another way to represent those 3 pieces out of the 8 of the pizza. So let's just do a quick little review here. In our couple of lessons ago, or about a few weeks ago, we've looked at the place values, and we remember we have the ones, the tens, the hundreds, and so on. Okay, today we're going to be looking at tenths, hundredths, and thousands. Okay, they sound very similar to the ones above, but you'll notice the little THS here. So when you pronounce it, instead of saying tens, you say tenths. Okay, and then we're going to see what exactly those mean. So the first part of the word decimal is deci, and deci means 10 in Latin. So it's an easy way to think about decimals is just to think of them as multiples of 10. For example, each time we move the decimal to the left, the value of the new position is 10 times more than the value of the previous position. And if we move the decimal to the right, the value of the new position is 10 times less than the value of the previous position. Okay, let's look at our number here, 670.89, or decimal 89. So the first thing I'm going to do when I fill out my table of place values is put my decimal, and the decimal is going to go right here to the right of the ones place. So these ones here we're all very familiar with, and today we're looking at the decimals, which are over here. Okay, so I'm going to put the decimal down here, and then I'm going to fill out the ones position, which is a 0, the tens position is a 7, and the hundreds position is a 6. So everybody should be comfortable with those. Now, let's look at the numbers to the right of the decimal. And what do they really mean? So in the tenths position, I have the 8. Okay, and in the hundredths position, I have the 9. There's nothing in the thousands position, so we can leave it blank, or you can write a 0, which doesn't change the value of our number. So we just leave it as it is. So this number, 670.89, is very similar to a fraction. In other words, I have 670 whole pieces of something, and then I have 0.89 of another piece. In other words, I can say I have 670 pizzas, and then I only have 0.89 of another pizza. So, and we're going to look at how to convert those to fractions, and we'll go back and forth between the two. So this number is referred to as a decimal. Okay. So let's look and see how this multiplying and dividing by 10 works, and as we see in our next example here, we have very similar numbers. We have 0.79, 7.9, and 79. Okay. So let's turn these decimals into fractions. Okay, in order to turn the 0.79 0.79 into a fraction, I first have to look at how many decimal places I have. And I have one decimal here and two decimals. So that's two decimal places. And then if I go up to my place value table, I can see that two decimal places, so this is the first decimal place here, this is the second decimal, this is the third place. I can see that I have two decimal places, and that corresponds to hundredths. So I can rewrite this decimal of 0.79 into 79 over 100, because the second decimal place is the hundredths. Okay, let's look at the next one. And the next one is a different color, is 7.9. And how many decimal places do I have here? Well, I only have one decimal place, and that is the one decimal place corresponds to the tenths. So I can rewrite this as 7 and 9 over 10. But I'm going to rewrite it as an improper fraction, and I get 79 over 10. This will allow me to compare all of the fractions. And then finally I have 79, and 79 is not really a decimal, okay, but I can still write it as a fraction because 79 is equal to 79 over 1. So let's compare our three fractions. Let me highlight them here. I have 79 over 100, 79 over 10, and then 79 over 1. So this one over here, 79 over 1, is the biggest number, and as a matter of fact, it's 10 times bigger than this one. So I can write it as 10 times. It's 10 times bigger than the second one, and the second one is 10 times bigger than the first one. Because here we're dividing by 10, here we're dividing by 100, and here we're just dividing by 1, or really not changing the value of anything. So this is how you can use a little shortcut of multiplying or dividing by 10 to move the decimals around. Okay, we'll do a few more examples down here. Okay, now let's go backwards and let's convert fractions to decimals now. Oh, let me just make a quick point here. So back to the above example here. So if this 79 over 1 is 10 times bigger than 79 over 10, and this one is 10 times bigger than the first one, then the third one must be 100 times bigger than the first one. Okay, so if we multiplied 0.79 by 100, we would get 79. Okay, now let's go on to example 2 now. So let's convert these fractions to decimals. Well, I have 8 over 10, 8 over 10, and then I look at my denominator, and the denominator is 10, so I'm dividing by 10, and the tenths corresponds to one decimal place, so this is going to equal 0.8. Let's look at the next one. 8 divided by 100. Well, the 100 corresponds to the hundredths or second decimal place. So for here, I'm going to get 0.08. And again, if you want to make a little note here, that's the tenths. And this one over here is the hundredths. Hundredths position. Okay, so let's look at our rule down here. Okay, so when converting decimals to fractions, to multiply decimals by 10, 100, or 1,000, or 10,000, any power of 10, you move the decimal to the right. One place or two places or three places, depending on how many, what power of 10 you're multiplying by. So if you're multiplying by 10, you move the decimal place one to the right. If you're multiplying by 100, you move it 2 to the right. Okay, to divide a decimal place by 10, 100, 1,000, and so on, you move the decimal to the left. One place or two places, whatever, depending upon which number you're dividing by. Okay, let's move on to adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division of decimals. Okay, let's start off with some adding here. So adding, okay, it's really important to line up your numbers so that the decimals line up vertically. And let me do this first one here. So I have 83 decimal 11, and then I'm adding 110.92. So it's important that I line up all my digits, including the decimal, in the appropriate spot here. And now you just follow your same adding rules as before. And I'll go 1 plus 2 here gives me a 3. 1 plus 9 gives me a 0. Gives me a 10, so I have to carry the 1 over here. So 1 plus 3 plus 0 gives me 4. And then again, I'll put my decimal down to line it up vertically. 8 plus 1 gives me a 9. And finally, the 1 just drops down below here. Okay. Okay, let's look at subtraction. So again, I'll rewrite it as 12.34 minus 5.12. Oops. And really important that again you line up all your place values. Okay? So same strategy as before. 4 minus 2 is going to give me a 2. 3 minus 1 is going to give me a 2. I put my decimal down. 2 minus 5 I can't do, so I have to borrow from the tens digit here, and that 1 is going to, well, the 1 is going to disappear. And now I have 12 up here. And 12 minus 5 gives me a 7. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's move on to multiplication. So multiplying decimals is very similar to multiplying whole numbers. So let's just get right into it. So I have 6.79. I'm going to change the thickness a little bit here. Times 2.38. So I'm going to do this the same way I do whole numbers. I'm going to ignore the decimals for now. Okay. Okay, so 8 times 9 gives me a 72. 7 carries. 8 times 7 is 56. Plus the 7 is 63. 8 times 6 is 48 plus the 6 is 54. Okay, let's do the second one now. So 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 7 is 21. Plus the 2 is 23. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus the 2 is 20. Okay, I have 2 times 8 is 18. 2 times 9, excuse me. 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14. Plus the 1 is 15. Carry the 1 again. 2 times 6 is 12. Plus the 1 is 13. I'll keep putting all that together. I have 2 over here. 10 over here. 16 in this column. 11 in this column, 6 in this column, and the 1 just carries down here. Okay, so you're asking yourself, well, what's the difference now? How do I make the decimals work here? So let's do that right now. So in order to figure out where the decimal goes, you have to count the number of decimal places in your original 2 numbers. My original 2 numbers are these guys over here. So how many decimal places does the 6.79 have? Well, it has 2 decimal places and 2 decimal places over here, which gives me a total of 4 decimal places. Well, how is that information useful? Well, my final answer is also going to have 4 decimal places. So if I start over here all the way to the far right and go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's where my decimal is going to be. So my final answer is 16 decimal 1602. So let's summarize the multiplication rules here. So we find the products as if they were whole numbers first. And then we fix the decimal place according to the total number of decimal places in the 2 numbers. So let's say if we were calculating 2.3445 times 2.111, how many decimal places would the solution have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3 over here. So 4 plus 3 is a total of 7 decimal places. So our answer would have 7 decimal places. Okay, let's move on to division, our last section here in this lesson. So let's look at the rules for division. Okay, we first have to convert the numerator and denominator, which is the divisor, to a whole number by multiplying the top and bottom by 10, 100, 1,000, depending on the number of decimal places. Okay, then we multiply the dividend by the same number. And then we'll use long division to get the answer. And you have to really be careful where your decimal place goes. Okay, so let's do an example over here. Okay, so I'm first going to rewrite this as a fraction here. So I have, as a division here. So I have 0.0444. Whoops. Let me try that again. 0.0444 divided by, let me change the thickness here, divided by 0.12. Okay, well, I have to change my divisor my divisor to a whole number. So what do I need to multiply? I'll do that on the left here. 0.12 in order to get to a whole number. Well, I see 2 decimal places, and in order to move the decimal 2 places to the right to get a whole number, I need to multiply by 100. So if I multiply this by 100, I will get 12. Okay. However, the really important part here is where you might make a mistake is if you multiply the divisor by 100, you also have to multiply the dividend by 100 as well. So if this is going to become 12 over here, then this also has to, your dividend 0.0444 has to get multiplied by 100. So I'm going to do that over here. 0.0444 also has to get multiplied by 100. And again, multiplying by 100 moves the decimal over 2 places to the right, and I get 4.44. So that's really important when you're converting the divisor, that you convert the dividend as well. So let me put that in here. So 4.44 over here. Okay. Now I'm going to put my decimal right up here. So 12 goes into 4. Well, it doesn't go into it, so I'll put a 0 here. Move over to the next one. 12 goes into 44. It goes in 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. When I subtract this, I get 8. Okay, I now drop the 4 down. And 12 goes into 84. It actually goes into 84 7 times, which is very nice. So 7 times 12 is 84. And there we go. So your answer is 0.37 right over here. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat the key rule here for dividing is you must change your divisor over here, your 0.12, you must change that to a whole number, and in order to do that, you need to count the decimal places and multiply by either 10, 100, or 1,000, depending on how many decimal places you have. In this case, we multiplied by 100 because we had 2 decimal places. And again, the most important thing is if you change this, if you change the divisor to a 12, if you multiply the divisor, you have to multiply the dividend, and the same rules apply for multiplying dividends. So multiply both by 100. Okay, see you all next time.